Hello and welcome back to Checkpoint Reach Podcast. I'm your host Luke. Today I'm joined by Matty as always, and we have a special guest, one of the Pbros coming into us all the way from Hogwarts Library. It's Ted Parry. How you doing, mate?
I'm good, thanks, man. Yeah, just brushing up on my spells. As you can see in the background, I've got a few in the bookcase.
I'm sure you're nailing them all, man. It's good to have you. Hope you're doing well. Here to talk about some games. We haven't had you on the podcast for a while, so we thought, why not get one of the Pbros on?
Why not, eh? Why not?
Some would say the better Pbro.
This is said every time to bait me.
China.
No comment.
No comment.
I mean, what competition can you have at this point to prove who's the superior Pbro?
Because we
feel
need
like
it.
There needs to be like a duel to the death.
I've got it, Matty. Go-karting.
Go-karting. Yeah.
Is that all right? Okay. Good.
Not quite duel to the
death.
I'm just hoping on his tinnitus to make him crash on the first corner.
Oh yeah, that would be a bit unfair, actually. We'll figure something out. Yeah, we'll figure something out. We'll get it put on the Checkpoint Reach podcast, the Pbro, the ultimate decider. We'll see how it goes. But yeah, we're here today anyway to talk about some gaming news and stuff like that. And if you are watching us on YouTube, give us a like, subscribe, all that good stuff to help us grow as a channel. And obviously comment below with your thoughts on topics we're going to cover today. And if you are listening to us on any audio platform, subscribe as well on there and also pass on the pod, because once again, it all helps channels grow and we'd appreciate it. But before we jump into topics, guys, just wondering what you have been playing this past week. Ted, if you want to go ahead and let us know what you've been up to.
So you're gonna laugh because this was actually when you asked me a while back what like a highly anticipated game I was looking forward to. I said Crackdown 3, and you all laughed.
Matty, you were on that show.
Yeah, but that's what I've been playing. So
Oh no!
But
I'm very disappointed in you.
in saying
defend
that, I actually enjoy it. So yeah, no, it's one of those games. I feel like because I play Warzone a lot, that's a very stressful game. So when I want to play single player games, I just want to I literally play that game. I don't even have the volume on. I'm like listening to podcasts and stuff while I'm playing it.
The Checkpoint Reach podcast, of course.
Of course, yeah, that's one of them. And yeah, I just play like without even thinking. I can just run around and shoot people. So it's just it's just one of those games, isn't it? Like you don't have to, mentally exhaust yourself trying to figure it out.
I was mentally exhausted playing Crackdown 3, to be perfect.
I had a feeling you were going to say that.
It was very poor, but I'll leave you to your. If you're getting enjoyment out of it, then good for you.
That was his most anticipated game of 2020. Don't forget.
Wow. Okay.
So I've never played it.
The irony is that Warzone ended up being the main game of 2020 for me. So I was clearly
I think
wrong.
it has been for a lot of people in reality, hasn't it? I mean, everyone's been locked down. Everyone's been, and that's the way that a lot of people have been able to communicate with their friends. So I feel like Warzone's had a nice win out of the COVID situation.
Oh, 100%.
Oh, yeah.
And it helps it's free, so everyone can have access to it, cross-play, all that good stuff. So, yeah, 100%.
Well, the timing was impeccable for it, wasn't it? They produced arguably one of the best Battle Royale games ever made at the start of lockdown. I mean, that's like godly timing. Maybe that's the conspiracy. Maybe they caused the lockdown.
They're in liaison with Bill Gates.
Yeah, but
these are the thoughts of Ted Parry, not Checkpoint Reach podcast. And if any Activision lawyers have a lawsuit, file it against Ted Parry. Thank you.
Disclaimer. Yeah.
I mean, I can categorically stick my neck on the line and say that Bill Gates was not involved in the production of COVID-19 or Modern Warfare.
Well, hey, again,
I'm going out on a limb there. I know, but
that's probably for a different podcast. COVID conspiracies. But I just want to quickly talk about a game that I've been playing, guys, because I know me and Matty, big Mass Effect fans, and obviously Legendary Edition finally came out, and I've been playing it, and I think it's pretty good so far. I haven't got stuck into it too much. I think I've only played probably about 4 hours at the moment. obviously, of the first one. But so far, loving it. Frame rates, obviously, all that good stuff. Resolution, all improved. And it really does feel like a leap forward compared to obviously going back to Mass Effect, which you'd expect. But yeah, it's great to jump back into that world, and I'm getting a lot of enjoyment out of it. Did you end up buying it in the end, Matty? I know it's something we talked about on the last podcast. No.
Well, unfortunately for me, I know everyone was waiting to hear the news as to whether I bought Mass Effect, but unfortunately for me, my Series X has decided to die and not want to play any games, whether it's a disc or a digital download. So I'm going to have to send it back for repair. God knows how long it's going to take to get repaired, considering that, you can't get hold of them. So
did you say Series S?
No, X.
Oh, X, right, okay. Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Tower
straight.
Is no more.
Yeah.
Goodbye.
That's weird though. Like you've had that issue with the Series X. My PS5 was broke when I got it. I think it took me 2 weeks all in all to get it back. To be fair, but I got replacement. It didn't get repaired.
I'm hoping the Series X will be, at least a week or two, maybe. I mean, it's not as in demand as the PS5, but they are both in demand, so it's
very true. But
who knows how long it's going to take to get back. So I've just been playing Hades on the Switch. I cannot wait until that game is out on the Xbox because I highly recommend it. It's hard to explain really to someone who hasn't really played any similar games
on the Switch.
Highly addictive. Yeah, it's great.
Because I played Zelda Breath of the Wild, one of the best games I've ever played. Without a doubt, I was literally hooked like it was on the early Pokemon days, where every night after work I'd go home and I'd be looking forward to playing it.
Man, that's what you want.
Obviously, I'm looking forward to Breath of the Wild too, but I think I have heard of Hades actually on the Switch. So, I mean, if you recommend it, I might give it a try. To be fair,
comes with a mighty seal of approval, so it's probably worth trying out. To be fair. But
seal of approval.
But Ted, you do have to try Mass Effect Legendary Edition because you said to me that you'd never actually completed them. So this is the perfect time to go back.
I've completed Mass Effect 1 and 2, I think. I just don't think I completed Mass Effect 3.
Well, that's probably a good thing, to be honest. Don't go back.
No.
The glory of Mass Effect 2 and forget that Mass Effect 3 existed.
No, you have to go through the pain we all went through.
All right, I'll make you a promise. Once I have complete the Skyrim remastered, I'll play Mass Effect Legendary.
Wow.
Is Skyrim taking you as long to complete as Oblivion?
Basically, even longer. Yeah, because I do all the side quests. But I've been a lot better this time. I've just been doing the main story. So
it's only taken you 2 years this time.
7 years. What do you do? Pick it up and play it for 10 minutes every other week?
Probably 10 minutes every 6 months or something. I don't know. Jeez, no. To be fair, I've obviously I had to start again because I played the remastered and I was doing the main story. And I'm not joking. I literally passed where I previously was within 10 hours of gameplay because I was just doing the story, and I was like, wow. On my old save, I had 70 hours because I was just doing all the side quests. So now I'm just right, I'm not bothering with the side quests. I'm just doing the main story now.
How far do you think you're through it at the moment?
I'm probably halfway.
Right.
Halfway, I reckon. So, yeah.
Yeah. Give it a couple months then. You might jump on the Mass Effect Legendary Edition. Fingers crossed.
Yeah.
I want to be able to talk to you about that game because it's one of my favourite franchises of games. Even if I do agree with Matty, the ending was a bit shit, but it's what it is. You might disagree, you might like it, so we'll see. But let's jump into our first topics of the day, and it's something that I found on the Metro website. And apparently, gamers are to blame for everything wrong in video games, according to this reader's feature. Some of the takeaways that I took from this was that publishers only making what the customer wants, so obviously what the gamers want. EA and Ubisoft realised microtransactions make so much more money than obviously just bringing out the games in general. EA money is only 26% from the actual games, which probably doesn't surprise us, does it? When you think about it like that. Pointless in-game tap that people used to get for free is now obviously had money put onto it. They do it because gamers encourage them to, according to this article. Also, they buy broken games on day one instead of waiting to see if they're better and cheaper, and obviously any fixes that come out afterwards. If you buy something, they listen. If you don't buy something, they listen, according to this article as well. And all we're telling them is to carry on with the microtransactions and the broken games because we all buy it anyway. So what do you think? Do you think this person, I didn't catch the name of the person who put the article, but do you think they've got a point?
I would say so. And one thing that literally popped into my head while you were saying that, and I hadn't thought about it for a while, but it's now popped back in, is GTA. Because do you remember on the old GTAs how you'd have like the DLC content and you'd get an extra 20 hours of like story content that was unbelievable? And now, because GTA Online is such a cash cow with all like the shark loans and the microtransactions, they're like, oh, we don't care about the the community. We're just gonna continue to rinse people for the free to play microtransactions. And like, there's so many cases of like gamers saying like, Rockstar, please give us DLC for GTA, and they're not listening. And it's down to the fact that they've worked it out. They've gone away and they said, okay, in terms of dev budget, this is going to cost us X millions to create this DLC content. In terms of return on investment, we're going to get X millions, but it's going to be profitable, but it's not going to be anywhere near as profitable as putting that dev time into making an extra stupid side mission or a casino mission on the online.
Yeah,
because they've justified it, and I don't think it's not doing it for a lot of people. I think people do want to see the DLC, and it's just a shame that I feel like they're saying that it's gamers' fault or whatnot, but it's how is it when the gamers do want that, but they're not listening? So,
but I would throw out, are we the minority there? I mean, apparently they were planning on bringing out a GTA 5 downloadable content DLC, story-wise anyway, and single-player stuff. But obviously, like you touched on, online just makes them so much money, so lucrative that they just didn't bother and they scrapped those ideas. But we don't play GTA Online anymore. Yes, we've dipped into it, we've tried it. So, we're not really. I mean, there's a massive community on GTA Online.
The majority of people that they are making money from in FIFA, for one, and GTA Online with the shark cards and FIFA points is little kids, which is difficult in a way because it's, you're a lot more susceptible to addiction when you're a developing brain. And these games really tap into the addictive sort of part of people's brains. And I don't think children are really prepared for that, and they're exploiting that in a massive way. And it should be banned. Legal authorities, government should be stepping in to do more about this, because at the end of the day, kids shouldn't be allowed to spend money on a roulette that spins and you get a good player or a bad player, for example, in FIFA. Mm-hmm. GTA, I kind of get it a little bit more because at the end of the day, you're still having to. There's no random chance in GTA, really, is there? You're buying cosmetics, you're buying things that exist in the game.
Yeah.
But it's still an element of you can play this game for 100 hours, or you can pay us £10 and then get the equivalent amount of money in an instant. And it really takes away from the gaming experience. They're exploiting the fact that children can only afford to play maybe 3 or 4 games a year, and add in small microtransactions and advertising it in a way where they can constantly get them to spend that £10-20 a week, and it's over and over and over again, and it's consistent. And the problem is with this live service model, there's maybe 3 or 4 games. You've got your GTA, you've got your Call of Duty, you've got your FIFAs, you've got Fortnite, but all the other games underneath that, there is a chasm between the next lowest game. So for everyone to sort of think there's only a certain amount of the pie, and for everyone to try and get the pie, I don't think it's available. Mm-hmm. All these games are already dominating this market, and for people to just say that this has ruined games because 3 or 4 games make a lot of money on microtransactions is just absolutely ridiculous. Because at the end of the day, the majority of the market isn't kids. There's also a market of 30, 40, 50-year-olds that still play games, that enjoy single-player games. And that's been proven time and time again. I mean, how many times have we said on this podcast, God of War, Horizon, all these Sony first-party games that are 10, 12-hour story experiences. They don't have microtransactions, but they sell massively, and they make Sony millions and millions. And every single time one of these games comes out, it's like, well, you're wrong about, saying that every game has to be free to play or every game has to be filled with microtransactions. You are categorically wrong. Mm-hmm. Just another article of someone that probably, read a statistic about, what one game or two games making millions off microtransactions and just assumes that that's destroyed the industry. And I don't think that's true at all. I think the industry is healthier now than it ever has been in terms of good quality games that are being released on a yearly basis.
I think to be fair, when it comes to like microtransactions and stuff like that, we're obviously not massive fans of it, but they probably do have their place. There'll be enough people out there who will be like, well, if I want to buy a cosmetic, then I will, and it doesn't really bother me that I can just purchase it. But I wouldn't just throw out there that every gamer and label gamers as a whole is to blame for that. And if you don't like microtransactions, which I think we all pretty much don't like microtransactions, doesn't mean though that the whole gaming community thinks the same way we do. I mean, as we know, game is very subjective, and anything that involves gaming is very subjective, and a lot of people probably don't mind it. I do feel though, I like you touched on with the kids though, the kid aspect, I do feel sorry for, because they are being manipulated, and especially with like FIFA and fucking card packs openings and stuff like that, and Ultimate Team is a disgrace, really. And I just think, like, how many times has a parent been, bombarded by their kid, like, my friends are buying this and let's buy V-Bucks, whatever. I mean, you used to work at Game, didn't you, Matty?
I saw it firsthand. I mean, the majority of my transactions were a 40-year-old, woman coming into the shop and buying £10. They didn't even call it Xbox or PlayStation credit. They were like, can I have £10 V-Bucks? It's like, that's how ingrained it is into the psyche of these kids. It's like they don't even ask for Xbox credit. It's just like, I want £10 worth of V-Bucks.
Well, let's be honest, they've probably stolen their dad's credit or dad or mum's credit card anyway, haven't they? So,
well, that's why a lot of people came into Stormate, because what happened is, they got the credit card details once and then they were stored in the system, and they'd end up spending like 500, 600 quid on microtransactions in a month.
Yeah.
So they used to, just take the card off and come in store to buy the points physically.
There was a really interesting stat, actually, and I wish I could remember it, but I can't. And it was to do with teenagers, I think, between the ages of 13 to 18, and there was a massive number of them admitted they had a gambling addiction, and most of them put it down to the fact of, like, because it was in tandem obviously with like loot boxes and stuff, to because obviously there's a lawsuit in the UK, isn't there, about it? I know there was in one of the European countries, but to try and put a stop to it. And obviously what is it that they call them? What is it that EA call them? They have a word for loot boxes. They call it like chance of fun. No, not chance of fun, but
chance of fun boxes.
Jesus.
Well, no, it's not that. It's something else. It's something like that. There's a terminology.
So they've basically tried to like tone it down, the terminology, to make it sound more friendly.
Yeah, and it's like, come on, man, you're exploiting people, and you've made fortune off it. And they need, like, stuff like that. I think they need to clamp down on, and I can understand then from the article's point of view there that is a big issue, and I think that is one. But I wouldn't say I'm to blame for that. The way the article says, like, just gamers as a whole, I mean, I'm not to blame for it. I mean, I played Ultimate Team growing up, but I never bought packs. So, I didn't feed into that.
I mean, categorically.
Yeah, you did. Yeah, you.
The thing is, as well, though, is that in terms of like microtransactions, though, it comes down to the fact that there's only going to be like a small segment of games and like that are actually going to be able to take advantage of that as well, because you need a big community of people to actually take advantage. It's a lot of a lot of games aren't going to reach that level of saturation. Like, you're going to have the Warzones, you're going to have the FIFAs, you're going to have the GTAs that suck up a large proportion of the gamer base. So like, and Fortnite as well. So obviously, like, another thing that that people need to consider when they actually are criticizing the publishers, like you can only really use that model when you have enough of a consistent community to do so. I mean, it would be a stupid play for like a game to. There's definitely games out there that are making themselves free to play and have actually lost out on a lot of revenue because they would have been better off just charging on the front end, charging 40, 50 quid, and then maybe having an element of microtransactions, but not as much. But I think there's definitely cases where there's games that they've been made free to play and they've drastically undersold themselves in terms of revenue.
Yeah,
I 100% think that's the case as well. So there's people looking at it from that case of like all these big conglomerates making loads of money, but there's also some of the independent, indie games that are trying to do that model, and they would have been better off just making money on the front end. So that's my opinion as well. Like, goes both ways.
No, it does. It definitely does. And one of the things that where was it that I read out before? Yeah, where it says like if you buy something they listen, if you don't buy something they listen. I mean, yeah, but how many times have we're all sports fans, football fans, and it's like, oh, if you got a problem with the ownership, just don't buy a ticket to the game. I mean, how easy is that to say? But how can you actually put that into practice? Come on, man. It takes a lot for a mass group of people in the video game industry to be like, yeah, we're not buying that game. And what was the last game that you remember that you thought, oh yeah, people shouldn't buy that because that is a stain on the industry or something like
Anthem.
that? I think
Anthem was terrible.
Right.
Yeah.
I think for me, the only time that I think that it would, massively affect the game's experience is if like they made a game free to play, but they charged on the back end for like, guns that, if you don't have, you're going to be trash at the game, or skins or armor or upgrades.
What COD is. The last time I played it, it was like that.
Yes and no. Like with Warzone is one prime example where a lot of people have basically moaned at that. It's a case where you can buy the battle pass to obviously get extra things, but Warzone's a bit of a weird one because a lot of the guns are free, free to unlock at some stage. So you could argue, yeah, there's probably is an element with that in Warzone because there's guns that are only in the battle pass. But at the same time, Eldon, from what I remember, you don't need the battle pass to unlock the free guns. It's only like special skins and things like that, isn't it? You'll still unlock like the free guns because it's free, isn't it? Once you get to like level 25 or 32.
I believe so, but I'm also coming from it that I haven't bought any of the battle passes for Warzone. I think I'm the only one in our group of friends that play that didn't.
Really?
Yeah, I've never purchased anything on Warzone, so I've just literally played it for the free entity that is, but I can't really remember going to use a gun and being like, that's stuck behind like a paywall.
Yeah, well that I don't, that's what I mean. I think COD's probably not the best example there. I mean, there's elements of the certain things being stuck behind a paywall. I know there was a lot of there was a few YouTube videos that came out from big streamers to say that the gun stats on the actual bought guns were wrong and they were actually better. So people that actually bought like the fully skinned version were getting like more damage. So like, and it was just mad to actually see that, because then that was a bit like, they've clearly done that on purpose. And there's also been the arguments of like, they have like made the new guns in the new season, like the battle pass season, better. So like basically they put like, they what I've read on and what I've read into is that they've actually buffed some of the guns that they want to sell more of the skins on. So for the Fafar, for example, that was obviously a meta gun for a long time, and they had like a reflective skin put on, and it was literally the only gun that had a reflective skin, and like everyone was using it. So
they capitalized
that
on that
for me was
popularity.
very sus. Yeah, I mean, that was very sus. The fact they only used the coolest reflective skin on that gun, I was a bit like, okay, that's a bit suspect. But in terms of like ruining the experience for like the gamers without battle pass, I'd say if you can still grind and get better, it's just that you can just buy a skin and have a gun that's level, 32 with a lot of the upgrades you already need. So you can kind of cheat in some ways and get further ahead. But
I think that when it comes to microtransactions, cosmetics and stuff like that, yeah, I mean, I'm not particularly a fan, but I'm not that bothered because I'm just like, well, I won't buy them. Fine. People will. That's their choice. It's their money or their parents' money. But pay to win and shit like that, obviously, that's completely wrong. There's a difference. Yeah. And I do agree with them there. Like, that shouldn't be in games. And obviously, yeah, I do agree from a certain standpoint then that gamers will enable that. If they are the ones buying pay to win, well, the devs are just going to keep putting it in because they're going to make more money. And obviously, they're playing off that competitive instinct of the gamer, where it's like, oh, mate, I need to do everything I can to win or whatever. Oh, well, here you go. Like that, yeah, I completely disagree with, or agree with the article on and disagree within the gaming industry. So, like Matty said, it's a very distinctive difference, but that is something I do agree with. One thing as well, to be fair, so not all the article I disagree with, but, well, I can't, so it depends. I'll see where you guys are coming from too on this. Buying broken games on day one that don't work and obviously a buggy mess. Recent memory is obviously Cyberpunk coming out and being an absolute abomination for some people. Now, is that really the gamer's fault, or is it just technology that publishers have at their disposal that has maybe made them more sloppy because they think, oh, well, we're on a deadline, we've got to get this game out. If there's something wrong with it, we've got the technology available to us now that we can make patches. Is that really the gamer's fault?
No, it's definitely, I think that comes down to the fact that in previous times, like the PS2, PS3, and obviously, Xbox 360, well, actually, I suppose that's maybe the PS2's a prime example. Like when you had a disc, it had to be like 100% done, didn't it? Whereas later on, it became a case of like, well, you can just patch that, but it's going to be like, 10 gig or whatever to patch it or to make it different. So they had a lot more pressure to get it right before launch. Whereas now, because of the capabilities, there's games that get completely repatched after launch. And the problem is, yeah, it's a different game. It's literally a different game. They get reskinned, repatched. So, I mean, the fact of the matter is also a lot of these publishers are under a lot of commercial pressure to launch in the key 3-month window, which is, October, November, December, when, that's the key retail period for every game. I know some publishers play a bit more strategically and decide to launch in like spring because they know there's less competition. Mm-hmm. But the majority of the big dogs are going to launch in that 3-month period, and they know they have to hit that. That's why FIFA's broken every year, because they have to launch it.
And they can get away with it.
And they can get away with it because they're just like, that's all right, we'll just patch it.
That's kind of what the article's saying. I mean, I guess, and in the large AAA space, I guess you've got a point. People are going to buy COD every year. People are going to buy FIFA every year. People are going to buy, these games, even if they know that they're broken, because they get enjoyment out of them at the end of the day. Mm-hmm. But I don't necessarily think that this is destroyed the industry or anything like that, because if you look at it, the industry is healthier than it ever has been in terms of games that are coming out, like I touched on before. I mean, Ted makes a good point there, and it's one that we've touched on the podcast before. It's one that I touched on with Game Pass. The thing that worries me about Game Pass and streaming and the future of games really is the fact that developers don't have to make a finished game, and they haven't had to make a finished game for some time. So you're going to get those bugs. And the most important thing to know is there's no obligation to ever fix them. They've already got your money in their pocket. They can never make a patch for that. And it's, there's no legal obligation for them to do anything. Once they've sold you the skeleton with no meat on it, it's yours. That's what you've bought.
Enjoy.
And they might add something else onto it in the future, but you don't know if that's going to be the case. Yeah. So it is an interesting point that the article's making, but until I start to see single player games and indie games drop off and start to become poorer in quality and less frequent, then it's something I'd worry about. But arguably, in terms of, volume of releases and innovation and quality of games, we're in a very healthy place now in the industry. There are a lot of good games coming out every year. The Game Awards is always packed with brilliant games. So it doesn't really worry me at the moment, but, in like 3-4 years' time, maybe it will.
Yeah.
The fact that Sony and Microsoft seem hell-bent on giving you a Game Pass style service. I mean, Sony have clearly got quite worried about it. They're trying to like double down on PlayStation Now and compete on their end. That's absolutely fine. Like I've said before, Game Pass, like Netflix, is great because it gives you a certain amount of games every month that you can play, and obviously the guarantee that you can play every Microsoft first party game. And now that's great. But in 3-4 years' time, I think the amount of games on Game Pass is going to matter more than the quality. Because they've already got your £10 a month, the only thing that a consumer is going to want from Game Pass is consistent new releases, not necessarily quality of release. They don't really care about getting $60 for the full price of the game, because that's irrelevant to them. It's just getting the games out. And that's what kind of worries me about the future of Game Pass and PlayStation Now.
That turns into Netflix.
I don't want to see mediocre 6.5 games coming out just because, they have to get them out. And that happens on Netflix. The amount of shit that is on Netflix that you will never watch again. Yeah. It's just absolute crap. But it just exists to keep the numbers up. It's something to put on the homepage and go new content, new series or whatever. And I just don't want that to happen with gaming. I feel like gaming is an art, and the people that make these games put a lot of their heart and soul into it. And to just be told, you have to release this pile of shit because we want to get it out, that's a dangerous situation that I don't want the industry to be in. I feel like they still need the time, and they still need the trust to have that time to sort of, make these games great. And hopefully that's the case anyway.
Make these great games great again. That's a slogan that we don't want to go near in 5 years' time.
Make games great again.
We'll get caps.
Yeah.
Well, I've already built a wall behind me.
Yeah, I've made a good start there.
Oh God, I've got the bookcase wall.
You do. There you go. I need to get my wall going. But no, you make a good point. Obviously, Netflix, man, I waste so much time just looking half the time on Netflix. Like, no. It's like, there's not much really on there that's that good, in my personal opinion. It's filled with a lot of filler shite. And unfortunately, we don't want Game Pass to become like that. But I think with these streaming services, that is a common trend, to be honest.
In a way, though, I think the way that it's a weird one, because you kind of want to, if Game Pass got opened up, and I get what you're saying on the quality, but it would be very. Do you remember the OG Xbox 360, Xbox Arcade, where you had all these little indie developers that were on the Xbox Arcade, and you'd find like the odd little gem every now and then, wouldn't you? Where you're like, oh bloody hell, this game's actually really good, and it's made by a team of like 4 people. It would be interesting to see what route Microsoft go down, because they could easily have like a branch off of Xbox Game Pass. So they could have like Xbox Game Pass, this is blockbuster games, this is like top tier stuff. And then, I don't know, it'd be interesting to like reintroduce something like you get Xbox Arcade with it, which is like indie development games, just so it doesn't get like mixed in with the main core titles that you just sort of like scrolling through, because then you could get a lot of variety. But I totally get what you're saying. You'd rather have quality over quantity on Game Pass, but I think there is definitely a balance there where if they got a few good indie developers and maybe had a branch off service, then people could pick off and find a few gems in there as well.
Yeah,
it could be interesting to see what they do with it. There's a lot of potential.
Agreed. Yeah, there is a lot of potential, and I'm sure it's something they'll probably look at in the future, but we will see. That's probably enough on that topic. So if you are listening, comment below with your thoughts on what we've covered. Do you really think that gamers are to blame for everything that's wrong in the video game industry, or you think it's a bit of both or more on the obviously publisher and developer side of things? Let us know in the comments below. But we're going to move on to the last topic of the podcast, and that is Ubisoft says it's changing strategy to focus on more high-end free-to-play games. Ubisoft is shifting away from its traditional strategy of releasing 3 to 4 premium AAA titles each year, but plans to launch high-end free-to-play games for all its biggest franchises. The company provided an update on its game development strategy during its full year's earnings call last Tuesday, when it said it intends to release it says it intends to be less reliant on AAA releases as part of its overall product mix. Now, Matty, this is one that you sent in to me, because obviously me and you talk about topics we're going to discuss on this show. What are your thoughts on it then?
I mean, we've covered a lot of it really. In the last topic, it sort of crosses over in a way. It's. I mean, I wouldn't say that it's bizarre. I know why they want a piece of the free-to-play pie, but it's quite worrying because obviously Ubisoft have been quite, good at making single-player games, I guess. I mean, obviously they have multiplayer elements, but if you look at Assassin's Creed, Far Cry, I mean, they're traditionally their two biggest hitters. Obviously, you've got like the Tom Clancy series, which is more online based and may fit a free to play model more. But to shift away from single player seems like a bit of a bizarre thing to be discussing, really. It's just a really strange situation in general. I mean, there's a lot of free to play games that are absolutely terrible. And I've got no doubt that they'll be putting a lot of resources behind it. But as Ted, covered before, if you don't hit big numbers with your free-to-play game, if you don't catch the attention of the public, then you've basically just released a game for free that you could have at least got 4 or 5 million sales selling as an actual single-player game, even if it was a flop. So it's a very risky strategy, especially when the market's already saturated with a lot of free-to-play titles. They're going to have to come in with something very compelling to pull people away from what they're already playing. And I don't think with the IPs that they've got that they can really do that. I mean, can you see a Ghost Recon or Rainbow Six game? I mean, Rainbow Six Siege has been very successful for them, especially on PC. But I can't see it pulling away people from Call of Duty and these type of games, to be honest.
No. And Ubisoft have notoriously bad reputation for their servers as well. So, I mean, to keep people playing on their servers is a big ask as it is. But yeah, no, I think you bang on there. I think if you think about it logically, if they did release a free-to-play game and it didn't hit the critical acclaim, the reviewers are on it. Like, the community's on it. YouTube reviews are going out. Blog posts are going out. It's all over social media. So you've just literally launched a free-to-play game, got really bad press for it. No one's going to even play it for free. You're not going to get the consumer base to even buy the stuff on the back end. Whereas Matty said, if you launch a game, get 3-4 million sales, and then you get the backlash afterwards, it's like, well, we've still made like 9 figures in revenue, or
keep the shareholders happy.
In revenue. Yeah, exactly. And then you just patch it down the line. But yeah, it's a massive risk. I agree with Matty. I don't think Ubisoft is going to have enough games to get the pull. What they're probably banking on is something like a Rainbow Six Siege that basically gets 8% of their revenue. So it'll probably be a case where they're hoping for one big hit. And they're basically throwing mud at I wouldn't say throwing mud at the wall because they've got some great titles, but that's the analogy I'll use, because they're just hoping that one of these games that they relaunch on free to play becomes a new Warzone. That's my opinion.
Yeah, it feels like they've seen the success of like Warzone and stuff, haven't they? And obviously the free to play model, but a big company like Activision jumping in and taking a massive chunk, and they're thinking, we can have some of that. Let's see what we can do. But yeah, they're gonna have to create new IPs, aren't they? With this free to play model, like I can't think of many off the top of my head that would suit that. Assassin's Creed wouldn't. Watch Dogs is probably in the bin. I'm assuming after Legion.
Rainbow Six Siege probably is the one where you think, that could work. I think it's still got a healthy player base, but obviously that's an older game now. They'd need to make another smash hit Rainbow Six to make that work, really. But it's a risky play. I mean, hats off to them. They've basically changed the whole business model.
By the sounds of the article, I'm assuming that they're still going to release a yearly Assassin's Creed and Far Cry. I just feel like they're pooling a lot of resources into other free-to-play games. And then, as we said, I don't think that any of their franchises are suited to that other than Ghost Recon and Rainbow Six. And obviously Ghost Recon is really dead in terms of that.
What was that one you made us play?
Was that Advanced Warfare?
I can't remember. Warfare? It was terrible. It was such a bad game. That's the last time I ever played a Tom Clancy.
But in saying that, why could Ubisoft not have a hybrid model? Like, why could they not say, okay, well, you can buy Rainbow Six Siege. It's going to have a single, it's going to have a single player element, but the multiplayer is free to play for everyone.
So and tacked on COD in a way, wasn't it?
COD, yeah. Why? I mean, that just de-risks the whole operation. Because if you just want to play multiplayer, you go on the free to play and then accept that there's going to be microtransactions in there. But then if you want to play the story, then you got to pay for it because they've put dev time into it, and you can't monetize it on the back end. Really, a story. I think that's the safest option. I think going fully free to play is a
big
ballsy
risk.
Move. Yeah, big risk, especially for player stuff.
What are Ubisoft games like these days? I'm not even joking. I think the last Ubisoft game that I purchased and played was actually Watch Dogs 2.
Actually,
not played any.
Strangely, a very good game. Watch Dogs Legion, really, very good though. Unfortunately,
mate, I liked Watch Dogs 2. I thought it was really good, and then when I saw the trailer for Legion, I was like, I am not playing that. That just does not appeal to me, and by all accounts, it was not great. Fell flat. So yeah, like I don't play any Assassin's Creed titles anymore. I dropped out after 3. The American Revolution one, can't remember which one. I think it was 3. It was terrible.
I've never ever played a more boring game than Valhalla. Maybe I'll get some hate in the comments. I tried to play that because it was a Series X enhanced game. When it came out, I was like, I'll give Assassin's Creed another try. Graphics were good, production values were good, but it was just the absolute just complete. Every time on this podcast we talk about games that are hundreds of hours but with nothing to do. That is literally the summary of those discussions. That's literally all you do. You just run around.
Flags like that as well.
Yeah,
Assassin's Creed, Black Flag, similar. Go on a ship and just.
Yeah. Even the fact that I was running around in Britain doing fuck all couldn't really save it. I mean, I can do that by just going outside.
Just go for a run.
Running around Liverpool.
I don't need to play Assassin's Creed to do it. It's just, I'm sure that there'll be people that like that style of game that get a lot out of that game and enjoy it and really enjoy all 80 to 100 hours or whatever ridiculous amount of time it is to complete it, but not for me. Honestly, I don't understand how people enjoy those types of games.
Well, it's a shame we don't have...
You're going to get hate from my brother, actually.
I was about to say that. It's a shame we don't have the other Pbro at this moment, because he liked it, didn't he, Ted, to be fair?
Yeah, he's been playing that quite a bit, to be honest. But the problem with Assassin's Creed is that this is the irony of like Ubisoft going down the free to play, because they have been one of the publishers that have made the most money from literally reskinning games. That's the irony of like you've literally exploited the reskin model, and now you're trying to like go into the free to play. It's like, do what you're good at, which is just make a game that's more or less the same, except put it in a new location and skin it and add a few new weapons in.
Maybe they're thinking that's getting tired. Maybe they're looking at projected revenues and they're thinking, we need to do something here. This is going to collapse at some point. I mean, Valhalla, what is that? Is that 4 or the 5th? 6th? Is it the 6th installment? Because Black Flag, I think there's another one.
More than that.
Really?
Oh, mate, yeah, there's loads. There's
1, 2, 3, Brotherhood, Revelations, Origins, Assassin's Creed Syndicate. Actually, that came before it.
12.
Assassin's Creed
it's
Unity.
the 12th major installment.
12.
And the 22nd release in the Assassin's Creed series.
You ruined Matty's little competition.
I took it right off the top of my head as well. And you've gone and ruined it with Google.
But I was in shock. I was like, no. But you were getting there. So,
Mate, I can't believe there's been 12. I mean, like, how long can that keep going? And that's yearly.
You were
man.
six off.
Yeah. That's like you know, they've got to do something different, surely, or at least have time in between these Assassin's Creed games. But then again, if it's making consistent money, I haven't really checked. But if it's making consistent money, they could do it.
They always bring in
change it, make it worse
in terms of sales.
Yeah, well, they're probably not going to be changing that anytime soon. But yeah, I just think maybe their current titles they're starting to fade a little bit, and they're thinking, right, well, we need something different. Obviously, right now, free-to-play model's very big. It works if you get it right. And like you touched on, Ted, to be fair, they might just tack it on to one of their existing IPs and just be like, yeah, well, you know, Call of Duty did it so well, so why can't we with our shooter Rainbow Six?
Yeah,
maybe?
I mean, I just really hope that these game developers, like, they add more like innovative games. I know it's a risk because it's like, okay, we could introduce new IP that doesn't work, but there's got to be a point, I mean, where you just say, okay, Assassin's Creed, yeah, it makes money, but it's a lot of the player base is getting tired of that model now. Like,
what time periods are even left at this point for it to go to?
It's true.
Dinosaur, the Stone Age, like running around with stones.
And you'd still have to climb up on a tree to unlock half the map. Yeah. My God. To be fair, yeah, what is left other than maybe making futuristic plays?
Yeah. Maybe that I've just had a brainwave. Maybe that's how they can reinvent the World War II game, is have Assassin's Creed in World War II.
Mate, I wouldn't even be surprised.
But Battle Royale, Stonehenge.
Stonehenge.
You have to just like capture the flag. Stonehenge.
Oh my God. But no, you make a good point. That's something that we've probably talked about a lot in the podcast. New IPs, man. Fresh ideas. I want more. I mean, I personally want more story-driven games and stuff like that. Yeah. So, but new IPs, man.
There are new IPs. That's just the only innovation that really goes on in the moment is in the small indie space, you know, because they've got, you know, making a new IP is the way that they get noticed. Making a fresh idea is the way that they get people to download the game. There's too much risk involved with the money that it takes to make a AAA game, you know, and it's the sort of a similar situation with films. You're not really going to see a massively innovative film unless it's from an already established developer.
Mm-hmm.
So
can afford to lose the money sort of thing.
Yeah, I feel like the way that we're going to move into innovation in the AAA space is by making game developers more well-known and more public figures. Because we've got like Kojima, and Kojima makes anything, and there's hype. There's hype around that game no matter what it is. It doesn't even matter. Like Death Stranding, you literally walked around with a backpack for 50
I did not
hours.
like that game. That was too boring.
Yeah, it wasn't great. It honestly wasn't great. I mean, I'm sure there are people who enjoy it. But
Sud liked it.
It wasn't the best of games. But people bought that because it was a new concept from Kojima. They didn't buy it because of the concept itself. If that game was not developed by Kojima, no one would have gone near that game. It was literally a walking simulator. It didn't make any sense.
To be fair, you've got a good point. He is now like a Scorsese or a Spielberg, isn't he? Essentially,
yeah.
Whenever they bring out a film, everyone's just like, "Oh yeah, it's going to be great," or the hype's there because of the name attached to the project. So that's a good point.
They're licensed to do some innovation with their films because people will still go and watch it, you know, regardless.
Mm-hmm. Look at The Irishman.
Like,
I mean, I know it's on Netflix.
100 hours long. It's longer than Assassin's Creed Valhalla.
Exactly, it's still got rave reviews. You know what I mean, though? Like, you're right. They do have more license. And so it's either going to be people like that they can get behind because the hype will be there, so they can take the risk, or it's going to have to be publishers that are ballsy enough to take a risk and being like, look, if it makes a loss or we don't hit the projected numbers, then we're going to be just fine. But let's try it.
Can I just interject, actually, because there's something that we haven't covered on the podcast, but it's quite heavily rumoured. Obviously, we're quite heavily Xbox focused on the podcast. We all have an Xbox. I have heard a lot of rumours that Kojima's going over to Microsoft.
Really?
Yeah, quite a few actually.
Matt sources.
I'll have to get my source out. HP and Heinz. I'll have to get out here with me.
Reliable.
But Phil Spencer over the years, he's been doing this thing, where he has little things in the background that hint to something that's being released. So in the past, he's had the Xbox wireless headphones just literally sitting behind him, and things like that. He's had the Series X sitting behind him, and he's had Bethesda, a Bethesda related trinket behind him just before the Bethesda announcement, and quite recently he had the Kojima Productions logo hiding in the background. So
did he actually?
That fuels to the rumor as well. Yeah. So be interested. That would be very interesting, because he is heavily just like he's combined almost with PlayStation. It's like
when you think
his identity is PlayStation.
Yeah, you think Kojima, you just think the games that are coming out on console is going to be PlayStation. That would be massive, a massive get for Microsoft if they could pull that off.
Yeah.
Do you think that would be? It could be anything with Kojima. Do you think that would be like a Death Stranding 2, or just kind of like?
I think it'd be a
new IP.
Definitely. Yeah. Because they're not going to get Metal Gear. That would be the ultimate, heel turn if Microsoft got Metal Gear on Game Pass. A new Metal Gear Solid.
Well, Hideo Kojima's like Triple H. There's always a plan B. Just that meme of Seth Rollins hitting Reigns with a chair. Microsoft to Konami. To be fair though, I feel like Kojima's done with Metal Gear. Maybe it might be not for good, never say for good, but at this moment in time, feels like he's done it. He wants to be more creative, fresh ideas, stuff like that. Maybe in the future he might, want to go back once he's had his break, but that would be interesting. Microsoft making big plays, and if they do bring in someone like Hideo Kojima, sorry, I'd be all for that.
It's just such a big lot. It's like a knife in the back to Sony, if anything.
Mate, bring him in and put it on day one on Xbox Game Pass's game.
Just like imagine him like holding up like a Microsoft scarf like that, like day one transfer. Like
him and Phil Spencer shaking hands. What would you think? Would you be happy with that, Ted, then, if that rumor was true?
Yeah, because obviously someone like that would just bring massive innovation to Microsoft, which Xbox has arguably fallen behind Sony in that department for a few years now. There's no doubt that Microsoft and Xbox has got too reliant on their big titles, whereas Sony has consistently brought out new innovative single player games. And he's been at the he's been at the forefront of a few of those. And I've always said that if you want to play primarily for like single player games, then you're gonna get a PlayStation. But if your friends are on Xbox and you like the access of Game Pass and things like that, then
yeah.
That's,
by the way, can I just quickly say, you just reminded me of something out of Star Wars, because you said, what did you say? I've always said that, and you said it like exactly the same. Do you remember, Matty? Boba Fett, where? Return of the Jedi. It just reminded me completely that. It is iconic.
You'll have to edit the clip in now. That after.
Oh. No, I agree. It'd be interesting to see, and I think obviously it could be a big move from Microsoft. So I'm hoping they pull it off, because to be fair, I'm not really bothered which side he ends up bringing games out on, because I do have both consoles. But it'd be cool, Microsoft, because might get it on Game Pass. So that's something I'm up for. But it's probably a good place to end the podcast. So we thank you for listening. If you're listening to us on YouTube, please like, subscribe, comment with your thoughts on the topics we covered today. That'll help the channel to grow. If you're listening to us on any other platforms as well, leave us a nice review and pass on the pod and unsubscribe and all that good stuff. You can also follow the podcast on social media on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook at ChetReachPod, and all the links will be in the description below. But thanks, Ted, for coming on, man. And where can people find you on social media?
No worries, man. So I'm Ted Parry 1 on Twitter. That's probably the best place to get me.
Perfect. And Hogwarts, if you're lucky enough to go there.
You'll have to check out.
If you need a spell, Ted your guy. And you can also follow me and Matty on social media. Where can people find you, mate?
At Matty Cheatham on Instagram, I believe.
Perfect, yeah. The links will be in the description anyway. But yeah, I'm on Twitter and Instagram at Leld. LEL, 3Ds, add a 9 the M for Instagram. But anyway, thanks once again, Ted, for joining us, mate. Really appreciate that. And thanks to everyone who's listening. Man. Wherever you are in the world, what time you're listening to this, we hope you have a good day. And we'll be back next week with another podcast. Bye, guys.
Catch you later.
Adios.